Hello, my name is John Foubert. I'm the Dean of the College of Education at Union University in Jackson, Tennessee, and I'm also the author of the book, How Pornography Harms. What I'm going to do today is to make a presentation to you I'm calling Hot Off the Presses, the latest research on how pornography harms. And I've given you a couple bits of information on this title screen. One is a URL that goes directly to the handout for this slide, or for this slide presentation, so you can have all my slides. Happy to have you have those. You'll see that's johnfoubert.com/CESE-2021. And I also included my email address. So if you want a copy of the slides that way, you can email me, or if you have other questions you have after this session, I'd be more than happy to correspond by email with you. So let's get started. The goal I have for this presentation is to share with you the most recently released research on how pornography harms, mostly from 2020 into the present. There are a couple studies that are a little bit older than that, but I'm trying to focus here just on the last year or two worth of studies that have been come out in the research literature. So one thing I want you to know about this presentation is that it's not intended to be a comprehensive presentation of all the harms of pornography. It's intended to be a research update to you so that you can update your flyers and your information in your presentations and those sorts of things with the very latest research on how pornography harms. Now, of course, this is a presentation on pornography, so it can be difficult and it can be graphic. Now, I'm not going to show you any graphic pictures, but I am going to describe some graphic things that occur in pornography so that I can talk about the research that it appeared in. And of course, this can be emotionally difficult, so I would just encourage you to take care of yourself and to participate at your own level of comfort. And if at some point you no longer wish to participate here, just take a break. So thank you, though, for attending, and I hope you stay with me. Now, the research for this particular presentation comes from a book I have coming out next year. It's tentatively titled Protecting Your Children from Internet Pornography, Understanding the Science, Risks, and Ways to Protect Your Kids. And that'll be out with Northfield Publishers about a year from now. And so I finished writing the book now. We're just in the area of editing it, but I've collected a lot of more research on the current harms of pornography. So that's what's included in the book that's coming out and in this presentation. So I'll start first by some of the newer research on prevalence of use. How frequently are people using pornography? And one of the things that we found is that half of 8th graders have viewed pornography. Boys tend to see it first around age 13, girls at 17, although there's a lot of variability in there. Some see it much earlier, some see it a little later. Another bit of that study found that 94% of men and 87% of women have seen pornography in their lifetime, so it's nearly universal at this point in time. And among users of Amazon.com, 92% of men and 60% of women have viewed some form of pornography just in the last month. Now, that's not the whole population of the world or of the country for that matter. That's just Amazon users. And you might expect that they would be a little bit more technically savvy than your average individual, might be a little bit more likely to view pornography, but still, that's a very high percentage. And as we all know, lots of people use Amazon.com. So COVID, what impact has that had on pornography use? The study that came out on that just last year found that during the COVID pandemic, pornography use increased by 11%. People had more time on their hands while they were home alone, and indeed, pornography use increased. Now, the pornography used to be viewed obviously primarily through magazines and then through videos and then on computers, and now we've made the switch to cell phones. Today, pornography is most often accessed through cell phones, and that's a study that came out just last year. Now, violence in pornography, we all know there's a lot of violence that occurs in pornography, and there's some new studies that have come out to document that violence so we can hopefully attack that problem. Now, the violent content is really the new mainstream in pornography. And there's a study that came out looking at pornography video clips, the kind that you would see on a tube-based pornography website. And they found that 45% of online pornography clips have one of the 5 violent behaviors I've listed on this screen, whether that be spanking, gagging, slapping, hair pulling, or choking. And so that's almost half of the clips that are online are showing some form of violence. Now, if you take that violence and analyze it a little bit more closely, 97% of the time when a man is violent with a woman in pornography, she shows either pleasure or she has a neutral response. And so one of the things I think we need to think about is what message does that send, especially to children who are watching pornography? Because the message it sends to boys is, well, I guess she likes to be hit. The message it sends to girls are, well, if he hits me, I should like it. And that is why I think that pornography is a recipe for rape and that we need to stop it. Now, among the internet clip research, there's other bits of research that have come out more recently, and this is where it gets even more graphic, and I apologize for that, but the current research shows that 45% of video clips on the internet show at least one man finishing on a woman's face. And as to whether people have seen that, 72% of men and 46% of women have actually seen that kind of pornography where a man ejaculated on a woman's face. And that is intended to demean women and to show that they're less than people and that they're merely objects. And that is something that should be of concern to all of us, because the more you turn someone into an object, the more easy it is to commit violence against them. Now, there's a lot of imitating of the violence we see in pornography. Some people just make the argument that, oh, it's just violence, it's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal because people are they're continuing to imitate what they see in pornography. When you take a look at the specifics of these studies, pornography showing rape has been seen by 1 in 5 men and about 1 in 10 women. And that's about 1 in 5 and 1 in 10 more than we would ever hope. Bondage, domination, sadomasochistic porn has been seen by many more people, almost half of men and a third of women. About 20% of men and 12% of women have actually, in their own behavior, choked someone during sex. And 11% of men and 21% of women have been choked during sex. 48% of men have ejaculated on a woman's face. So this is all things that are violent, that occur in actual behavior, that are imitations of what people are seeing in pornography. And to continue in that line of research, among those who've seen, quote, rough sex in pornography, which would be the behaviors that include hair pulling, spanking, scratching, biting, bondage, fisting, and double penetration, 91% of the viewers of that wanted to take part in those behaviors, and 82% had taken part in at least one of those behaviors. And that's a shocking study that I think we need to get out there and explain to people a little bit more so they know that this behavior is being imitated. Now, porn and rape, there's a lot of research that connects porn and sexual violence. Some of the more recent studies show that men are more likely than women to become aroused by pornographic images featuring rape. And men who equate sexuality with expression of aggression and power are more likely to prefer rape porn than other men. And so rape porn is still alive and well, and it is having bad effects on the people who watch it. Now, in addition to what I've already told you, with increasing use of pornography, it becomes more likely that men will be likely to rape, likely to commit sexual assault, be sexually entitled, and have hostility towards women. In addition, men who consume more pornography, particularly the kind of male-dominant pornography, are more likely to use sexual force in their own relationships. So this shows that pornography is not just a visual media that has no effect on people. It's actually a visual media that leads to violence against women in particular. And that's one of the main reasons why we need to document its harms, and we need to encourage people not to use it anymore. Now, I want to talk a little bit about marital relationships, which are important to many people. Men who have high levels of pornography use are actually less likely to get married. And married people who view pornography have many different characteristics. They're more likely to believe that their marriage is in trouble. They're more likely to discuss ending the marriage. They're more likely to repeatedly break up in their marriage. They're less likely to view the relationship as either good or strong. They're less likely to feel like a team with their spouse. They're less likely to think the relationship makes them happy. They're less likely to believe that the relationship is nearly perfect. And indeed, no surprise, they're less satisfied with their marriage. So while some people might try to convince you that using porn in a marriage can spice up the bedroom and is a really good idea, it actually makes people less satisfied with their marriage, and it's a very bad idea. Now, is pornography racist? That's a question that's come up more recently, and there's a lot of research that's been done to try to document those effects. And so in one study, a study of mainstream pornography and aggression, Black women were more often the target of aggression than white women, which is interesting. Black men are more often portrayed as the perpetrators of aggression against women and are depicted as significantly less intimate with their partners compared to white men. And in fact, the most aggression in porn scenes occurs between Black couples. So these are things that are obviously of concern. Now, how does porn impact sexual relations? How does it actually impact what people do together in consensual activities, let alone non-consensual activities? Well, when adolescents are exposed to pornography, they're less likely to use condoms if they engage in sexual intercourse. However, and here's an interesting point, if these adolescents had conversations with their parents about the importance of wearing condoms, the pornography effect went away. So here's one thing that we can do as parents is talk to our kids about using condoms if they choose to engage in intercourse, and that can help decrease the likelihood that they won't use condoms in that intercourse. Now, pornography also tends to have an effect on sexting and self-esteem. Sexting is increasingly common, as we all know, particularly among the people in the 18 to 29 year age group. In that age group, 38% had sent sext messages and 42% had received them. 15% of people have had their sext messages forwarded to someone else without their permission. So another way that sexting is used for sexual exploitation. Another bit of research in this realm has found that men with low self-esteem are especially likely to use pornography as a way to overconform to male norms, like having emotional control and being self-reliant. Now, there are some additional harms I also want to document that pornography has been shown to have in the last couple of years. One is in the area of revenge porn. 1 in 12 adults report that they've been a victim of revenge porn, and 1 in 20 report perpetration of revenge porn. Women are more likely to be victims of revenge porn than men, and women who experience revenge porn report higher rates of psychological problems, as you might imagine, when something very intimate is shown to potentially millions of people that they didn't consent to have be shared. Veterans, there's some interesting research out there on veterans. They're actually at a greater risk than men in the general population for developing problematic pornography use. Some of the factors associated with veterans' problematic pornography use include being younger, being less educated, having depression, anxiety, PTSD, insomnia, and impulsivity. And problematic pornography use here in this study was characterized by distress about using pornography, excessive use, difficulty controlling use, and using it to avoid negative emotions. And that study just came out this year. Problematic pornography use, in addition, there's more research on that. 2 risk factors for problematic pornography use are having a substance use disorder and having a history of childhood abuse. So that makes it more likely that someone will have problematic pornography use. Also, men who have problematic pornography use report that it gave them unrealistic expectations when it came to sex and sexuality, and that it affected the way they viewed women and led to diminished sexual function. Finally, in the problematic pornography use research, it's been shown that it is associated with sexual functioning problems, not only for men, but also for women. And that study just came out this year. Now, I want to wrap up today's presentation by sharing 2 online resources with you. The first one is an area of my website where I document hundreds of harms of pornography, not just the ones in this particular presentation. And that's at johnfoubert.com/ispornbad with hyphens in between the words there. And then the other resource is a copy of the slides from this very presentation. johnfoubert.com /CESE 2021. So I hope you'll check those out if you think that they might be useful to you. I spend a lot of time collecting these resources and documenting them carefully, and that's so you don't have to, so that you can just get them from what I've collected for you, and you can go forth and share the research on the harms of pornography with people. If you do have questions, please feel free to ask them. You can ask them as part of this presentation, and I will make sure that I get back to you with responses to those. This is, of course, pre-recorded. But you can also go for more information to my website, johnfoubert.com. And at the bottom, I'm giving you both my email address and my cell phone number. So if you wish, please avail yourself of those resources, and you can use those to your heart's content. And follow me on Twitter if you might think that you'd like to. Thank you all so much for listening to my presentation today. I hope you learn to document the harms of pornography, share those with others, and let's defeat this pornography industry once and for all.